You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back on the Insight NFL channel. It was so nice. We're going to do it twice. I'm the horse, and joining me fresh back from Bali, it's Mullin, and he's over his Bali belly. How you doing, mate?
Mate, feeling much better now than I was a couple of days ago. And thank the Lord I'm back in Australia. I don't have to scrounge through dodgy websites trying to watch NFL over in a different country. Glad to be back. Glad to be here talking shop, and just honoured to be sitting here across from you, mate. So, yeah, very keen for tonight.
Stop it. You'll make a grown man blush. But ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't yet, like, subscribe, bell. We call it being the triple banger. But if you're listening to us on audio, give us that 5-star review. It helps us get out into the ears of those that love a bit of fantasy and a little bit of banter to go along with it. So last night we touched on SuperCoach. We talked about the flex. We talked about players to watch. Tonight it is fantasy football. So for those that concentrate themselves on the sleeper app or like-minded sort of apps for their fantasy football fix, then this show is for you. We will be answering questions at the end. So if you do drop questions or comments in the chat below, we will get to them. It just might be till the end. But also down below, if you scroll across from the comments button, there's a hype button. Give us a bit of hype. We love that shit here at Insight. Gets us out. It's like giving the thumbs up. So yeah, hype the shit out of us. Mullin, what do you reckon? Do you want to start with some injuries?
Let's get into it, mate. Let's get into it.
And like last night we touched on, there's quite a few prominent injuries that people may need to move off on. But let's talk about Georgie Kittle to start off with, mate. He has been placed on IR.
Yeah, so locked on, placed on IR. That is by minimum, if people haven't understanding the IR situation in fantasy as of yet, that's a minimum of 4 weeks that he will be guaranteed to miss. And by all accounts, with that hamstring, they probably will take it a little bit slower. So it's probably going to be leaning out to that 5 to 6 weeks there for George Kittle. So a big hit for the 49ers.
Yeah, 100%. So we talk about Georgie Kittle and we talk about Purdy as well from the 49ers. So they've got Big Mac Daddy Jones taking over QB2 there at San Francisco as their lead quarterback this weekend. Are you looking at bringing him in off waivers, or is it just going to be the Christian McCaffrey show?
It's very gross for the 49ers this week. I think only in a super flex, if you're just absolutely scrapped in the quarterback position, I probably would bring in Mac Jones, because we've seen that 49ers system. Doesn't matter who they throw in there. Could be me, could be Morrell. I think would still do pretty well. With I know I'm scraping low at that one, but it's just a very friendly system. So if you are caught in a pinch, I wouldn't mind grabbing Mac Jones in super flex leagues only.
Yeah, for sure. Brock Bowers, there's been no communication yet on the severity of the knee injury yet. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, we're still waiting to hear. It's a bit of an iffy situation. There's been nothing locked in. Of course, we're a little bit misled with Brock Bowers himself saying that he's ready to go and that he won't miss a week. But again, touch wood, we'll see what happens. Take what the players say with a grain of salt. But hopefully Brock Bowers is ready to go for week 2 against the Chargers.
Is that just Brock Bowers being a TC, a tough see you next Tuesday, or is that just the footy player in him coming out?
Yeah, I think he's got some dog in him. I think he's very tough. Okay. He doesn't want to miss a week. I think, this guy, he's all about business. He's all about football. So hopefully the injury wasn't too much and he can get back out there in week 2.
Love it. Love it. Drake London's another one. WR1 at the Dirty Birds, Atlanta Falcons. Do you think he misses or do you think he plays? Bit of a shoulder injury there.
It's hard because the depth at Atlanta Falcons at the moment, it is pretty dismal. I did see that Darnell Mooney, their projected wide receiver 2, will probably start this week after coming off an injury that he was dealing through preseason. It might be a situation similar to AJ Brown with the Philly Eagles last week, where they're strapped for numbers. They'll probably just have London out there just running decoys and little bits and pieces. But yeah, I don't think, and we'll get to it later, but I'd be very, very cautious of Drake London this week, even if he is cleared to play.
Yeah, so you've got Drake London, you've got Darnell Mooney, who's also questionable as well. Maverick gave me a bit of a hard time because I picked up Ray McLeod in the last round of my draft. If those two both miss, do you think Ray McLeod might be a bit of a sleeper this week?
I love it. I love it, Horse. And we'll get to that with our streaming options at the end of the show. He will get a little mention, so a nice little teaser. It's gross, but he did get some work last week, and they really don't have anybody else out there, so they're going to have to
Awesome. Mate, let's get into our preview for the week.
Let's preview the game for the week ahead. It's time for Game Talk.
Now we're talking about the Friday game here in Australia. It's Thursday night football in the States. It's the Commanders versus the Packers. And I'm really looking forward to this game. If you told me, 12 months ago, Washington with a revamped team, Jaden Daniels as the quarterback, as a rookie, Packers, Jordan Love struggling from time to time. Fast forward that 12 months, and now they're potentially two of the most exciting teams coming out of week one. It's going to make for some pretty handy Thursday night footy.
I think this one is going to be an absolute blockbuster. I think Packers, they do get the edge. I think Micah Parsons, he will play more snaps this week compared to last. And with him on that defensive line, he's just an absolute game wrecker. And again, on the Commanders, they have some questions. Eckler's a little banged up. Terry McLaurin, I still don't think he's really ready yet after holding out for most of the preseason. So probably leaning Packers on this side, but it's going to be a banger, mate. It's going to be a great way to start off week 2.
I want to ask you, it'd be easy to talk about Debo and Ertz, Zach Ertz, Tucker Kraft, these sorts of players who are very fantasy relevant. But I want to talk about Josh Jacobs versus the Washington Rush defense. Who do you think has the upper hand there? Because we've had some inboxes and some questions around Josh Jacobs this week. Who do you think has the ascendancy leading into week 2 there?
I think Josh Jacobs. I think he gets the nudge for me over the Commanders defense. Packers are at home as well, so it's also just to amp them up in that home field at Lambeau. They've got a bit of a cauldron there. I do really like Josh Jacobs, and with the kind of smorgasbord that they have at wide receiver, I think they will lean on him heavily. And the Commanders defense is nothing to sneeze at, especially in that secondary with the pickups that they've had. So I think, they'll lean heavily on Josh Jacobs. And I expect that Packers will be leading for a majority of this game, which will help Josh Jacobs on the running game.
It's a bit of a lucky dip, isn't it? That Green Bay wide receiver corp. It could be any one of 6 or 7 players that get the attention or the reps in, week out. So I'm with you. I'd probably steer clear of anyone in the wide receiver group at Green Bay. Let's talk about the next game, mate. Rams versus Titans. When we're talking Rams, we're talking Kyron Williams, we're talking Puka Nacua, and we're talking Matt Stafford. Is there anyone else relevant from that Rams team that you would consider for fantasy?
For this week, like you mentioned, Kyron, Matt Stafford, I do like him against the Titans defense and secondary, but then also the wide receivers. I know Puka, he took a bit of a head knock. There was a bit of a graphic image with him bleeding, looked like from his eye, but he's a warrior. He'll be ready to go. And Devontae Adams, I think those big four for the Rams, those key guys, they're all going to be good starts this week. And when we look at the Titans side of the ball, it's going to be a bit ugly because the Rams, they decimated Texans last week. They couldn't get anything going. That defense is definitely going to be one to watch out for. So I'm going to be steering clear of just about everybody on that Titans side of the ball, except Calvin Ridley, because the way I see it, that game script, Rams are going to be leading for the most part. Cam Ward is going to have no choice but to chuck it, and Calvin Ridley should be the main beneficiary of that work. So Pollard, I'm sitting, Chigakonkwo, I'm sitting, and then the rest of the kind of lower level guys in that receiving game for the Titans, I'm not even looking at this week.
Probably the most, I'm not going to call it exciting game, but from an offensive point of view, the Jags versus the Bengals. This is going to be the one to watch if you're just the casual NFL fantasy fan or the casual NFL fan. I reckon both these teams could get over 30 points each in this one.
I'm going to take a breath for this one, Horse, because this game, I absolutely love this matchup this week. It's the highest total when you're looking at the sports book. They're currently at over 49 total points, which is a couple of points higher than the next best. I can definitely see this blowing out to over 50 when it comes to game time. Both very weak defenses we saw in week 1. I know for the Jags, they didn't have much competition against Carolina, so you can take that with a grain of salt. But their secondary isn't anything to sneeze at. There was some talks that Travis Hunter is going to see a little bit more on defense, but with how lackluster the Jags are on offense, and with I think that the Bengals will be leading for the most part, Travis Hunter will get his fair share on the wide receiving end of that game. So for me, all the Jags, I'm starting Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Hunter, and Brian Thomas Jr. I think BTJ will have a massive bounce back this week against that poor Bengals defense. And then on the Bengals side, everybody that's been doubting Jamar Chase after that week 1 start, they're just going to have their absolutely mouse handed to them, because I think he'll drop double scores. He'll go for 100 yards. He's an absolute smash start this week. And I think he's going to remind us all that he was a Triple Crown winner last week. And of course, Joey Burrow, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, those guys are all going to come along for the ride. And this is going to be a big one. This is going to be the most points, I think. And we're going to love this for fantasy.
What do you think about Noah Fant? So he had a pretty good game at tight end last week, probably outplaying Mike Gesicki, in my opinion anyway. Do you think there's a world where we could just be keeping an eye on Noah Fant on waivers, and if he does outplay Gesicki again this week, that he might be a sneaky ad?
Yeah, I think I'd probably give it another week, Horse, with that one, because, like you said, there is Gesicki and Fant there. Fant's pretty new to the system, and they did also extend Gesicki over the offseason to a multi-year deal, so they must like what they see from him, but might have just been a blimp. Joey B, he does like to kind of spread it around with those tight ends, so we'll just kind of wait and see with what happens with their Noah Fant, but he could be a sneaky option in the upcoming weeks.
For sure. Let's talk about Browns and Ravens. You're going to have to convince me quite heavily as to why this won't be a blowout in favor of the Ravens.
Yeah, I can't convince you, Horse. Just looking at last week, the Ravens, I know you guys touched on it last week, an absolutely devastating loss to Josh Allen, the current MVP, and the lads there at the Buffalo. But hey, you've got to play for whole 60 minutes, and Lamar come out, he said that. So I think they're going to make a big statement. Derrick Henry, that costly fumble at the back end of the game to bring the Bills back in. I think he's going to come out on a vengeance. I think he scored 2 rushing touchdowns last week. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to back that this week. So all the guys on the Ravens are Lamar, Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry. Those are the top 3 that I'm starting. But on the shakier end on this offense, Mark Andrews, there was so many points scored last week, and for him to barely sniff double-digit points in traditional fantasy was just disgusting, especially with Isaiah Likely out. Now Likely is rumored to be starting this week. I think there's just going to be a bit too many mouths to feed in that tight end position. So I'm kind of just steering clear from that, sitting those guys. But then on the Browns, and the Browns are just, they're going to be so disgusting. We saw against a shitty Bengals defense last week, they couldn't really get much going. They probably should have won that game if they didn't
miss field goals.
Missed field goals, missed extra points. They just absolutely threw it away. The guys that I'm starting on this end for the Browns, and this one's probably a little bit controversial, I am starting David Njoku, even though it looked like Harold Fannin did come out on top. I think that'll kind of bounce back this week. I know those divisional games with Bengals and Browns last week, that could be a little bit weird. So I'm hoping Njoku can get back on track. And for the most part, I think the Browns will be losing a lot of this game. So that in terms of game script, they're going to have to throw the ball. Joe Flacco loves to air it out when he needs to. So yeah, all the pass catches, Njoku, Judy, and Tillman. But I am very, very cautiously, I will start Dylan Sampson if I have to, purely because of that receiving upside. We saw he had 6+ targets and receptions in that first game. And Jerome Ford, don't even look at Jerome Ford. No. That's gross. And Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah, how far away is he?
Go. I think he's still a couple of weeks away. I'm with DFAB, what he mentioned last night. I think he could go on the commissioner's exempt list. Again, we don't need to call our shots now. Let's wait for a bit more information. Let's play this smart. Let's just leave Judkins for one more week.
For sure. Let's talk Bills and Jets. If we're going by last week, this one could be another high scorer as well. Josh Allen, Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir versus Justin Fields, Breece Hall, Wilson out wide. What about the likes of Braylon Allen, the backup running back? There's a bit of noise about him and his role, but I'd be more inclined to sit him this week.
I'm with you there, Horse. Yeah, I'm not really looking at Braylon Allen. We saw what he did last week. All he did was just take a touchdown away from Breece Hall. He had a handful of carries, no real looks in the receiving game. Breece Hall, his level's above everybody else. It's a shame that he doesn't get the goal line touches. I think that will probably stay with Braylon Allen, but Breece Hall, he can get a touchdown. He can take one to the house from anywhere on the field. So I think I'm fading Braylon Allen. I'm still starting Justin Fields, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, those top 3 for the Jets. I'm fading everybody else. And on the Bills' end, in their first divisional matchup of the year, I think they'll look to make a statement. And all the key guys that went off in week 1, I expect the same again. Josh Allen, very big chance that he runs one in for another rushing touchdown. Keon Coleman, absolutely love what I saw last week. I think that's just a glimpse of what's to come as being the main receiver for the Buffalo Bills. And also Kincaid and Shakir, I think they'll also have a role in this one. So in terms of fantasy, should still be some good options. The Jets, I thought their defense was probably going to be a little bit better, but probably the new head coach, it's going to take a little bit of time to get those guys ready to roll and firing is what they'd probably hope. So yeah, definitely going to be some value in this game.
For sure. Let's talk about one of your favorite players right now from the New England Patriots, in Drake May. And they're versing the shit show that is the Miami Dolphins at the moment. Jeez, there's a bit going on there, isn't there?
Oh, the Dolphins, they looked absolutely horrible last week. I think when it comes to fantasy for at least the foreseeable future, I'm targeting players that are going to be facing that Miami secondary for weeks to come. They just looked absolutely decimated. They couldn't stop anything. Their secondary from this time last year to now, they've got completely all new starters, especially in that cornerback and safety position. They moved on from Jalen Ramsey, as we know. He's at the Steelers. So it's going to be a big game to exploit for Drake May. I think it's going to be a get-right game for him. I can't see the Patriots losing. And also, as a betting man, they are the underdogs, I believe, in this game. So if you're there betting Patriots, that's the spread I'm covering on this one. I think they're +1. But again, on the Dolphins, oh, man, it's a tough one. I mean, Tyreek Hill, his antics on the sideline, especially with how Tua looked. And I know Maverick, a guy he was touching on with Tua, he normally doesn't look that bad, but his O-line just didn't really give him anything to cover. Shocking. And I think, very shocking. And the Patriots I think their rush defense and that defensive line, as we saw in week 1, they stopped Genty. They got to the quarterback. They caused a couple of interceptions from Geno. I think Tua could be in for the same fate this week. And yeah, I think Patriots, they walk away with the win. And I think Dolphins going to be a bit sad for fantasy this week.
Yeah, a shitty-ass O-line, and then you've got a quarterback who's been decimated with concussion in his career. It's not a recipe for success. So, yeah, if you can steer clear of Tua, I would absolutely be doing that this week. 49ers and Saints is our next game, mate, and we touched on it earlier. There's no Purdy. There's no George Kittle. Is it wheels up CMC this week?
Oh, God. I'm a little bit worried as a CMC owner in a lot of spots just how much work he's going to get. I know he had a lot of work last week, but, man, he could definitely see 35-plus touches because there's just really nobody else. Also, Ricky Pearsall, he's healthy. George Kittle, as we mentioned, he's on IR. They do have Tongs, I believe. He's the backup tight end, but besides that game winner he caught last week, I can't really see him doing too much. It's going to be the CMC show. Pearsall's going to get work done, and it's going to be Mac Jones slinging the rock. And Mac Jones, as gross as it sounds, he was competent last year that we saw when he was with the Jags, and he does hyper target his number one. So CMC, I can see him getting double-digit targets this week, and Pearsall, he should be expected for a big load as well. But on the Saints side of the ball, oh, man, it's gross. It's gross. Spencer Rattler, just watching him last week, he didn't look as bad as what I expected, but still, it's nothing to be happy about. I am starting Olave. He's definitely the number one target for that team. He should see work, even as gross as it's going to be from Rattler. And also Juwan Johnson, if you are caught up in a strapping spot for tight end, I've picked him up on waivers yesterday in a couple of spots. I think, again, he's going to be a volume play in terms of PPR. He will be another one to start, and I can't see 49ers leading. I can't see the Saints leading in this game as well, which will hopefully lead to more garbage time receptions for Olave, Juwan Johnson. Also Kamara. You have to play Kamara as well. It's those big three for the Saints, or not really big three, but it's consolidated offense, things that we love for fantasy. Those three are going to get all the work that they can carry.
For sure. Giants versus Cowboys at Dallas. So Dallas looked good against Philly in the first half, and then that break came along, and then everything just came to a screeching halt. So when we're talking CD Lamb, George Pickens, Dak under center, Jake Ferguson, Javonte Williams in the backfield look good as well. They've got a few little assets there at the Cowboys that could be very relevant for fantasy this year.
Yeah, and I think this is a very big game back for the Cowboys. CD looked pretty good week one. Of course, he did miss a couple of key catches that honestly that could have put them in a position to win the game. So I think he'll come out absolutely screaming to start off. And Pickens, I think he'll have a big game as well. I like him to get a touchdown this week. I like Dak to throw for a couple and also 250-plus yards, because that Giants defense, they just couldn't stop anything from the Commanders last week. That Commanders, they weren't really dealing with too much help in that receiving end. Yes, of course, Debo carved him up, but Terry McLaurin was really a non-factor. Zach Ertz got a little bit of a look. And Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, he was able to run one in on that Giants D-line. So I also think Javonte, he's probably good chance that he's probably going to get another touchdown to be relevant for fantasy. But after this week, I'd be looking to move Javonte when I can, because I think their schedule gets a little bit harder as we get closer on. But yeah, all the Cowboys I'm starting this week. I think they'll bounce back. And yeah, CD, I like him to have a massive game. But
sure.
on the Giant side of things, besides Malik Neighbours and Wan'Dale Robinson, if you absolutely have to, especially in PPR leagues, I'm sitting Tyrone Tracy, I'm sitting Scatterbo, I'm sitting Russell Wilson. I think they all looked horrid last week. I think this is going to be a game where they're trailing, and I just don't like them in terms of fantasy. So I'm sitting them if I have to.
Is Wilson washed, or do you think he's just started off scratchy and then he's done, or is it just a matter of time until Jackson Dart comes along and takes that starting job?
I think back end of this game coming up on Monday morning, I think we'll see Jackson Dart, whether it be the third or the fourth quarter. I think Russell Wilson, we've seen everything that we needed to see in that first game. The Commanders' defense, yes, it is. It's definitely better than what it was last year, but he just couldn't do anything. He looked horrid. Malik Neighbours needs someone in there that's willing to throw it and throw it accurately. And I think Jackson Dart can be that guy. And he looked so good in preseason. If I was Brian Dable and my job was on the hot seat, I'd be wanting to give the young buck a go, and hopefully he can turn things around for him.
For sure. The next game, a couple of teams under the pump, I reckon. Chicago Bears, after leading last week and holding JJ McCarthy to not much, and then just stopped in their tracks. It's like they fell or ran out of gas. They're playing the Lions, who look pretty ordinary against the Packers. Very much a game that we're looking for. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Caleb Williams yet. It doesn't look like he's extremely accurate. Like, he's got a gunslinger of an arm, but not overly accurate, which is going to affect your Adunze's and your DJ Moores, even though he looked good at times last week. But the person that impressed me the most in the Chicago Bears offense was Swift, the running back. The run blocking that the O-line gave him, it looks like he's going to get some good yardage this year.
Yeah, I agree. Horse, and I wasn't really a big Swift truther leading into this year. I just didn't really like him. I didn't like what he put up with Ben Johnson back when they were both together in Detroit. But they really have nobody else. Cole Monongai, he's that rookie 7th round pick. Rashawn Johnson is injured. I think Monongai still needs a bit more time to get acclimated into the NFL. So it is going to be Swift for the bulk of this one. And their offensive line, you could tell from last week, it improved heaps. Those additions that they made in the offseason, it's going to pay dividends for those guys, and also Caleb Williams. I will start Swift. And again, I will start the pass catchers, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, and their quarterback, Caleb Williams. I'm all going to start them. Caleb Williams, he's performed pretty well in these divisional games against Detroit last year. He's only had a couple, and he provided the goods for fantasy. And just that rushing production, it's just one thing that I want to touch on that we can't sleep on for Caleb Williams. It's just a cheat code for fantasy, and he's not afraid to scramble. Good chance he throws in a couple of touchdowns with the play calling from Ben Johnson. So I do like the Bears in this one. And on the other side of this one, Horse, the Lions.
Yeah.
I think I do like the Lions to win this. I think Dan Campbell, I think he won't be happy with their performance last week. Their offensive line, it is a big question mark with the additions that, I guess the main guys that they lost last year. Frank Ragnow, their center, their pro baller, he's gone. He definitely left a big hole. But I think they're going to come out the gates. And, I mean, they're just too talented on that side of the ball. First game back at Detroit after getting their ass handed to them at Green Bay. So I think in this divisional game, they're going to come out swinging. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameer Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams, even David Montgomery, and also Jared Goff. I'm starting all those guys. So looking at this game as a whole, there's not really anybody that I'm going to really sit that's of note. Cole Monongai, he's not ready yet. Leave him. Isaac Tesla, he's a bit too shaky at the moment, not really too consistent, so we'll leave him as well. But everybody else, they're going to be a big start. I expect a lot of fantasy points in this game. Yeah,
you're right. Dan Campbell will be, I reckon, embarrassed by what Detroit put up last week, and expect them to come out firing, especially at home. Seattle Seahawks against the Steelers this week. And apart from Jackson Smith and the Jigba on the Seattle offense, they were really disappointing, and coming up against a team that has a defense of the ilk of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This could be really rough for them this week.
I think this is going to be a gross game. I think the Steelers, after last week, that was probably the worst defensive showing that we'll see from those guys. I mean, letting Justin Fields and his couple of options that he has on that offense to score 30-plus points on them, I think that was pretty dismal, given with how talented that defense is for the Steelers. I think Mike Tomlin, for the first game back at Pittsburgh, I think they're going to come out absolutely screaming. And it hurts me to say this. It really does, because I was a Ken Walker truther for the whole season, but I'm sitting Ken Walker this week. And I know it is hard especially given I know 1 quarterback leagues he was going in the 4th round, 2 QB leagues he was probably going in the early 5th as well. So you might be caught in a pinch. You might have to start him if you don't have any better options. Please feel free to start Ken Walker. But if you do have someone decent, say a DeAndre Swift, even that you could throw in there, I'd rather have him this week. It's just that offense as a whole, that running game. I mean, I think he is more talented than his running mate Zach Charbonnet, but just the splits last week, he saw less snaps, which you absolutely hate to see for running backs. And I've got to eat my words. Charbonnet just looked better. So hopefully that isn't the case. I'm hoping, and I'm probably a little bit too biased with how high I am on Ken Walker. I'm hoping because the injuries he was kind of dealing with and that was tinkering with him along the preseason, that was kind of what was holding him back. So yeah, I'm sitting Ken Walker and also Sam Darnold for the Seahawks. I am sitting just because I think TJ Watt and that defensive unit, I think they're going to come out absolutely screaming.
Monster him, yeah.
And that Seahawks O-line, they are nothing special. They were, proven that against Nick Bosa and the boys last week against the 49ers. But in terms of starts to get a bit more positive, I'm starting DK Metcalf. I mean, revenge game. I love playing that narrative, not only in betting, but also in fantasy. I think he will come out with all 4 cylinders against his former team in the Seahawks. Jaylen Warren, again, I've also got to eat my words. Caleb Johnson, he's just not ready. He's just not there yet. It's going to take him at least 6+ weeks, I think, before he sees the field. So I'll do like Jaylen Warren. Also, Jonnu Smith, as gross as it is, I will start him as well. And even Aaron Rodgers, I think he looked pretty good. I mean, he threw 4 touchdowns last week. I don't expect that to happen again for some time, but he could throw in a couple and he could be fantasy relevant. But then also on the Seahawks side of the ball, Zach Charbonnet I am starting along with Jackson Smith and Jigga, because I mean, JSN, Secko's my guy. He saw 50+% of the target share last week. It's just
55%. That's right.
55%. He is that receiving offense. And I do think they will be trailing in this game. So it's going to be all JSN with everything that he can handle.
For sure, mate. For sure. The next game, Bronco country versus the Indianapolis Colts. They looked really good last week on offense. The Broncos, not so much, with Nix really struggling under center. We're talking Cortland Sutton. We're talking J.K. Dobbins. I'm not a massive fan of Nix, but someone that did impress me from the Indianapolis Colts, it's not Michael Pittman. It was Tyler Warren, the rookie. His first game looked really calm and composed out there.
Yeah, he looked really good. And even straight out the gate, I think all in the first quarter, I believe he had 4 receptions all within that short amount of time. So you can just tell that this guy, they have a plan for him. They want to use him. He's just a beast. He's George Kittle light. I won't say he's George Kittle because George Kittle's just that dude. But Tyler Warren, in terms of looking at the Colts side of the ball, he's probably the only one that I'm comfortable with starting. I guess also with Jonathan Taylor, I think you have to start him just given the amount of work that he's going to get. But looking at the Colts last week against Miami, yes, Danny Dimes looked great. Michael Pittman looked great. Josh Downs, he was lacking, but I think that was more so with his injury that he's been dealing with. It was a hamstring. We know that the guys can come a little bit slower when it comes with that. So I am sitting Daniel Jones, Michael Pittman, and Josh Downs purely because this Broncos defense is nothing to play around with. I know they looked a little shaky against Tennessee Titans, but they're still closed out the win.
In the NFL.
Yeah, they did. And like they're a no-fly zone. Shout out to DFAB. This is his team. These guys are going to look so good. I think they're going to absolutely sell out and try and stop the run, which will affect JT. They'll try and put the ball in Danny Dimes' hands, and I think they're going to pick him at least a couple of times. I think, Pittman is not going to get a lot of love, but Tyler Warren, those shorter area things, I think they're going to be up for grabs with all the pressure that's going to be sent at Danny Dimes. And on the Broncos side of the ball, feel comfortable starting Cortland Sutton. He's the main guy, true and far above everybody else. And also J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. R.J. Harvey, still proceed with caution. He's a rookie. He didn't really get as many touches, but he definitely did look like the more explosive player compared to J.K. Dobbins in that running back room. But J.K. Dobbins, I can see him running in one for a score and being fantasy relevant. Bo Nix should be a bounce-back game for him. The Colts defense isn't anything special. This one, I think Broncos, they'll hopefully look to get back on track. But, I'm going to be very, very cautious with Indy Colts receiving attack and also Danny Dimes for this game.
For sure. Panthers and Cardinals are next up. I can't get around Bryce Young. I just can't. He's I don't know what it is. I just don't know.
Yeah, and I think Bryce Young, I know for me, I think it was a bit of fool's gold. Like the back end of last year when he was benched, came back on, he looked really good. I believe he was a top 10 fantasy quarterback during those final 4 to 6 weeks that he was playing. But I think there's still a little bit of teething issues. They moved on from Adam Thielen. There goes his safety blanket. They're bringing in Ted McMillan. Of course, he was a top 8 draft pick in this year's class, but still he is a rookie. He needs some time to kind of get things ready. And I think that in turn is kind of working with Bryce Young. In terms of sits for this week, Bryce Young, Xavier Legette, don't even go near them. I'm leaving Bryce Young. But for starts, pretty much everybody on this Cardinals team. I'm starting James Conner. I'm not too worried about the split between him and Benson. I think I was a bit surprised between the Cardinals last week and the Saints. I don't think they came out as firing as what they probably should have. But I think Conner, he'll start to see the Lions work share. And Trey Benson, if you need to, might be a little bit of a spot start if you are strapped in that running back position.
He looked all right last week. Yeah, I like
it.
Yeah,
he did. He did. And I think it will, with time, he will start to edge in more and more so with Conner. I know head coach Jonathan Gannathan for the Cardinals, he was talking during the offseason that he does want to see a bit more of a split, but I think the gap between him and Conner is still a bit of a ways to go as it stands at the moment. But in terms of receiving game for the Cardinals, Marvin Harrison, I think you have to start him against Panthers. He could be another touchdown threat. And also Trey McBride, tight end for the Cardinals. I think he's going to see a lot more work than what he saw last week. And in turn, Kyler Murray, he will be a start. He's got that rushing floor, everything that we love against, and also throwing against a weak Panthers defense who looked absolutely dismal last week. And on the Panthers side of the ball, it's going to be Tet purely because I think they're going to be behind. He's going to be the main target. And Chuba Hubbard, he will see most of the work in that running and also receiving game, I think, for the running back. So those two are really the only ones worthy of note to be starting this week.
For sure. Philadelphia Eagles versus Kansas City is next. Naturally, we're starting all Eagles that you potentially can. Hurts, Barkley, Devontae, and AJ Brown. Yes, the wide receiving core was pretty quiet last week, but don't expect that to continue. For Kansas City, it's Mahomes, it's Hollywood, and it's Kelsey. Especially without Worthy, I think Kelsey and Hollywood really do eat this week.
Yeah, I'm with you, Horse. I think the Chiefs, I think it'll be a little bit of a replay of their Super Bowl matchup earlier this year in February. I think Eagles, I think they absolutely kill the Chiefs. I know that's crazy to say, but I think they win by at least a full score, a full 7 points. I think they cover the line as it stands. I think Jalen Carter missing that start of the game and not getting suspended because technically he did miss the whole game last week. I think he's going to come out absolutely firing. They'll shut down that running game. They'll put it into Mahomes' hand, which of course he's a magician when it's put in on his lap, but he doesn't have much to work with. There is only Hollywood Brown. There's Travis Kelce. I know their rookie Jalen Royals. He has been dealing with some injuries, so he might miss this week. Like you mentioned, Xavier Worthy, very long shot to start. And Rashee Rice, as we all know, he's still suspended. So, yeah, I think Eagles, they're just going to sell out the run, really put a lot of pressure on the Chiefs and try and go against their young left tackle in Simmons that they picked up in the rookie draft this year. I think that's a very exploitable matchup. But on the side of the Eagles, I mean, at cover for tonight's show, AJ Brown, I'll start with him. It is a massive bounce back spot for him this week. And I saw some stats since 2023 in back-to-back games, in the second game coming off a single-digit fantasy finish, he's always had at least double-digit points in that bounce-back game. So I think he could go massive against the Eagles. And we saw what the Chiefs did last week. They really did stop the run against the Chargers, a team that absolutely loves throwing the ball and a team that is good at it. Their defensive player, I believe it is Chris Jones for the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the best defensive pieces in the league at the moment. I think he will really put a lot of pressure on Barkley, like we saw in their Super Bowl face-up. And I think it will come down to Hurts and the receiving core of Devonta, AJ Brown, even Dallas Goedert. You can sprinkle him in if you need to. But I think, yeah, Hurts, he'll slice and dice him like he did in that Super Bowl game. And this will be a fun game. Probably a bit biased as a Bills fan, but I really do hope the Chiefs lose and start the year out 0-2.
Ouch. Love it. Get around it. We're talking Falcons and Vikings now. I know we're not. Or are we?
Yeah, Falcons, Viking. Yep.
Bijan Robinson looks really good. The Peni, Michael Penix Jr., Love him. I reckon he's going to be really, really good. Just the more snaps he gets under center, the more accustomed he gets to playing at the NFL level. I think he's got the frame and he's got the mind to be a really good player in this league. JJ McCarthy started off slow, came home like a house on fire, but I want to quiz you about him too, because everyone remembers, or there's a saying in sports, you're only good as your last game. And for 3.5 quarters that last game, he was shithouse. He still only threw for 130 yards in that game, albeit that he scored, what was it? He had a rushing touchdown and 2 passing touchdowns at the end and scored, I think it was 26 on Sleeper in fantasy. But what do you see the outlook of JJ McCarthy being? Like, we know he's been a winner his whole life. Was he lucky last week that Chicago was tired and they almost stopped on defense? Or do you think this is a sign of things to come for JJ McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings?
I'm leaning on the latter. I think JJ McCarthy, I think this is just a taste of what's to come. Not only like with who he is during college, yeah, like you mentioned, he's a winner. His college stats and even high school, all he does is just win games. And coming out, a lot of the NFL scouts are all saying the same thing. Like, they weren't really talking so much about JJ McCarthy's talent and his attributes on that side of the ball, but just his demeanor, his leadership. There was a clip that I saw, I think it was a Pat McAfee show, when they were down all those scores in that last quarter. I think in the huddle, he said something like, where else would you rather be? And like, to me, that's just like, he's just there for the game. He's there for the moment. No moment's too big. I think he's going to be an absolute stud, and he's got such a great supporting cast around him. Kevin O'Connell, depending on how the Vikings go, he could win Coach of the Year this year. I think he's just an absolute quarterback whisperer. And his supporting cast, Justin Jefferson, he looked a little bit slower. I'm gonna blame a little bit that on the hamstring he was dealing with during the offseason. Hopefully he comes a little bit more online. TJ Hawkinson was a non-factor last week. I think that changes against the Falcons. Their defense isn't anything special. Okay. But yeah, I think JJ McCarthy, I think in this game I think Vikings, I think they put the Falcons to the sword. And the main point for that to me is I'm expecting London, whether he gets ruled out to start the game or if it's going to be a similar scenario to how AJ Brown was in week 1, he's just going to be a bit of a decoy. He's dealing with that shoulder injury. I think they'll just kind of have him out there just as a body because they don't really have much else to go around. As we touched on, Darnell Mooney, he is projected to come back. But again, first game back off injury, he's not going to be game ready. I'm not too sure. Exactly. He's going to be rusty. I'm not too sure much work he's going to be. I think it's going to be a lot of the workload put on Bijan, and I think the Vikings will know that. And also, I can't not talk about Cole Pitts. I think he will. He could lead the Falcons in receiving for this game. As gross, but also as sexy as it sounds to say, he could be in for a big week because I just don't really have much else in terms of that receiving game for this week.
Cole Pitts season, baby.
Let's go.
Let's go Monday Night Football. Buccaneers versus the Houston Texans. Bucky Irving, Egbuka. Jeez, he looked good last week. Mike Evans, Baker, Collins, all worthy of being starters this week in this game. Stroud, I want to ask you about him. So his rookie season, he looked really good. What did he finish, like QB6, I want to say, 2023? Don't quote me on that, but last year struggled, and last week looked a shell of his former self. I really didn't like what I saw out of CJ Stroud.
Yeah, and it's a tough one because, like his rookie year, I mean, God, I know. I was enamored just by the talent when he came out. He just put that team on their back, took them to the playoffs, and even got them a win, I believe, in the playoffs in his rookie year. But this one I'm pinning it all down to the offensive line. It is a joke. I mean, the Rams just absolutely ran through those guys last week. Stroud couldn't do anything. It was very sad to see Nico Collins. I know this is a traditional fantasy show, but for all the SuperCoach listeners, Nico Collins, I expect him to bounce back this week because, man, they just couldn't do anything last week. Hopefully they kind of make a few adjustments. The Buccaneers pass rush isn't as good as the Rams will be. So hopefully Stroud will have a little bit more time to find his number one receiver in Nico Collins. He's probably the only one on the Houston Texans side of the ball that I'm starting. Yeah, they're running backs for Texans. Again, I think they will probably be behind for this game, so I can't see them getting much luck. Nick Chubb I think he's had a few too many injuries. He's getting a bit too old in age. and their offensive line. Yeah, it's just those guys really need to figure things out. If not, it's going to be a very long year for CJ Stroud and that running game. But on the other side of the ball, Buccaneers have faith in starting Bucky Irving. He wasn't as efficient on the ground last week, but I think that will change against the Texans. They should start to open things up. Egbuka, I mean, what an absolute stud. It's just great to see him coming out and giving a nice little 2-touchdown game to kick things off. I can't see that repeating, of course. I probably think this is going to be a Mike Evans bounce-back game. I think Baker, he likes to kind of favor on his vets when they have a bit of a lull. So I like Mike Evans to go big here. With that being said, I am still starting Egbuka. They don't have much else in that passing attack to go around, so it is more of a consolidated offense.
Not until Godwin comes back anyway.
Not until Godwin comes back in. By all reports, it's looking like week 5, week 6 for him, so he's going to have a bit of play time. And then Baker, of course. I mean, Baker looks just so good. Down in the stretch, as cool and calm as ever, and just throws an absolute dime to Egbuka to get those guys over the line, which is clutch. But then, again, just to touch on, Nico Collins is the only player I'm looking to start on the Texans side of the ball.
Yeah, Ripper. Love it. The last game we're going to talk about, LA Chargers versus it's not Oakland, it's the Las Vegas Raiders, sorry. And we're talking about our starts on the LAC side of the ball. Hampton, Ladd McConkey, QJ, Keenan, Herbert. They're up against Geno, Jacoby, Genty, and Bowers if healthy. I want to ask you, Michael Mayer, so a fairly high-rated tight end and did a pretty good job until Brock Bowers came in. If he sits, there's definitely worse backups in the league than Michael Mayer.
Yeah, well, Michael Mayer, as we will touch on him again shortly in our streaming options. He will be a stream for me this week if Brock Bowers sits. We saw last week he played 63% of the snaps. They were running dual tight ends quite a bit in that Chip Kelly offense, and he did see 4 targets for 4 receptions and just under 40 yards. So if Brock Bowers goes out, Geno does love to throw to that tight end in this system, so I think he will be a beneficiary. And Michael Mayer, he's a pass-catching tight end as well. He's not a blocking tight end, so he will slot in nicely. But, of course, it's all dependent on Brock Bowers if he plays. I mean, if Brock Bowers plays, I'm not touching Michael Mayer. He's just way too good. Even if he is carrying that little injury, I think he's just levels above where Michael Mayer is. And with, in turn, that Las Vegas Raiders passing attack, Jacoby Myers, I think he's going to be a very safe guy, very safe floor. He is that clear target in that wide receiver room. Dante Thornton and Trey Tucker, they might split for those bomb receptions and maybe float week in, week out on who gets a touchdown grab if they do get lucky on that way. But for the Chargers, I think this is a massive bounce-back game for their running attack in especially Marion Hampton. He was a little bit lackluster last week, but of course, he is a rookie and he did face probably a top 5 rushing defense in the Chiefs. So I think he's going to bounce back in a big way. Raiders rushing defense isn't anything special. I think they can exploit it. And I know there was talks that Jim Harbaugh, head coach for the Chargers, was saying that Najee Harris will probably get a little bit more of a run. He was on a snap count last week. I'm not worried about Najee. He didn't practice for most of the preseason. I think Hampton, again, levels above. I'm going to start him, and hopefully he can run in for a score. And in that receiving side for the Chargers as well, before we get to the streamers, Ladd McConkey, you have to start him. He just looks too good. And also Keenan Allen, I think his connection with Justin Herbert, those guys, they've still got that love together. They've still got that juicy connection that we love for fantasy. One that I will probably just this hide on the side of caution is Quentin Johnston. As it stands, I will start Quentin, just be given if you do need to start a nice flex. He does have a nice touchdown upside, but I don't know. There was too many drops last year. They didn't really have much else.
Yeah.
He can go missing, and just it can cost you weeks if he puts up a big old donut, drops a couple of key passes, it leaves a sour taste. And I think there is better options, and I think Keenan Allen is a safer play. And of course, Justin Herbert, Madison Beers' boyfriend. I think he's going to have a back-to-back stellar week, and hopefully he can add a bit more in the rushing game, because I mean he's just a beast, absolute beast of a human. I don't want to sound like his head coach Harbaugh, but yeah, I mean Herbert, he could really be an MVP candidate this year if everything goes right for the Chargers. So yeah, I expect Chargers to win, and everybody else for that team to have good fantasy impacts for this week.
I love beer.
Oh yeah.
All right. let's get into your waiver wire or streaming options for this week. Talk to me. QB, tight end, flex appeal. Who you got?
Awesome. So in terms of QB, I am looking at this more so in a one quarterback lens, because this is where you can kind of more so than not, you're going to have a couple of good options on that quarterback waiver wire up for grabs. Because of course, normally a 12 team league in that one quarterback format, there's going to be plenty of these quarterbacks to lay around. My number one guy that is out there in waivers, I know that for a fact because I picked him up in one of our one quarterback leagues, Caleb Williams. I did touch on at the start of covering their matchup against the Lions this week. He has shown a couple of good starts against the Lions in these divisional games. He adds that rushing floor. He's got an absolute mitt full of pass catching options as well to lean on. And I think he will really give us some good fantasy options. And if Caleb Williams, if your league's a little bit savvy and they're holding him, or if you've got a Bears fan in there, Geno Smith, I think will also be a good option. He did throw for a couple of ints last week, but I mean, he threw 300 plus yards. I think you can almost lock him in for a guaranteed passing touchdown. It gives you a nice little safe floor if you are caught in a pinch in week one for that quarterback position.
For sure. You touched on Michael Mayer. If Bowers doesn't play, Juwan Johnson from New Orleans as well. He's just a safe blanket for Spencer Rattler, isn't he, there for the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, he is. And they just don't really have much else to go around in this offense. Horse. So Juwan, I believe he saw 8+ targets last week. Kellen Moore does love utilizing that slot position. And Juwan, we saw in his college and also early NFL career, he does thrive in that slot role. So I do expect him to have a nice little floor, especially in PPR leagues. I would be looking to pick up Juwan Johnson if you can to be a nice streaming option for week 2.
For sure. You touched on Wan'Dale Robinson earlier for the Giants, but I hope Maverick's listening to this because you've got my man Ray McLeod in if Drake London doesn't play.
Yeah, and just to touch on again, this definitely is dependent on Drake London. But even still, I think, I really think it's going to be a situation where they're just going to run London out there, but they're not really going to use him as much while he kind of deals with that injury. So it's going to be a little bit misleading, like we saw with a couple of plays this week. But yeah, Raymond McLeod, even with London last week, he did see some work, especially in garbage time, pardon me, when he went down. So if you are caught in a pinch, Raymond McLeod, wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, and also Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver for the Giants, especially in PPR leagues, they should offer you a safe floor to get you through week 2.
For sure. There you have it. They are Mullin's picks this week on your waiver wire, or players that you could potentially play this week if they're still sitting around. Let's get into some questions and comments.
It's question time. Let's answer your questions for the week ahead.
So something very interesting that Matt Carmody's brought up, mate. Joe Flacco has one career start versus Baltimore. He threw it 59 times.
And I think he could be in for it again. Yeah, like I touched on, Ravens are going to come out absolutely swinging to start this thing. Derrick Henry, very big chance to have a rushing touchdown in that first quarter and just set those boys up right at the gate. And Flacco, it is a little fairy tale. I do love that narrative. He used to play for the Ravens and led those guys to a Super Bowl many years ago. And he is going to have to throw the ball. They're going to have no other option. Their running game's going to be stuffed, and they're going to be behind a lot in this game. So, yeah, he could also be a little sneaky streamer if you have to. But again, I'd try not to because I think the Ravens defense are going to eat him up.
For sure. Matt, as well, who would you start between Bill Krosky-Merritt, Zach Charbonnet, or Tyrone Tracy Jr., full PPR?
So looking at this, I think I probably would go Zach Charbonnet at the moment. If Austin Eckler does get ruled out, I probably would lean towards Bill Krosky-Merritt. I am just kind of and Tyrone Tracy, I'm not even looking at them this week against. I think they're versing the Cowboys. I just want to steer clear of that Giants running back room, especially with how bad their offensive line looked in week 1. But Bill Krosky-Merritt, if Eckler does miss tomorrow, I probably would lean him more so just because purely based off the opportunities that he will get. But I expect the Packers, especially with Micah Parsons playing more, they're just going to be an absolute run stopper, and they might stuff Bill Krosky a lot in week 2.
For sure. A few of our American brothers joining in. watching the stream. How you doing, lads? And then our man up in Queensland, Peter, he's like, morning. Hey, you should be in bed by now. The street lights are on, mate. Damo, he's in Perth. It's basically yesterday, today, tomorrow, over there in Perth. How are you, brother? And that's about it that we've got in the chat. 50 minutes. I think we've done pretty well, mate. Where can the people at home find you?
So please, guys, if you want to stay in tune all throughout the NFL season, we're going to be very active on X and also Instagram. My handle @Mullin_FF. I believe our Insight Fantasy Sports X on X is Insight FS Sports. And on Instagram, it's Insight NFL Fantasy. So make sure you're tuning on there. If you do follow, I did drop a post earlier today where you can follow us on both Apple Podcasts and also Spotify podcast platforms, because as I mentioned in the post, all of our content week to week is going to be based on the upcoming week's games. So you do really want to be tuning in when you can throughout that week to make sure that you keep up your advantage amongst your league mates for that upcoming week.
For sure. And we've got our brothers from across the ditch in here as well. Scorched Earth, Mrs. Scorched Earth. How you doing, love? she loves a bit of a shout out occasionally. So we got to say good day to her. They're across in New Zealand. So thank you for tuning in. The fact that we're getting people from all around the world shows that we are well liked right the way around the world. And the way that we would appreciate that is by thumbing up this video. Give it a share, give it a like, subscribe, the whole 3 yards for us. We call it being the triple banger. But also if you listen to us on audio, give us that 5-star review, please. It helps us get into the ears of those that love a bit of banter along with their fantasy footy. I'm the Horse. This has been Mullin. We appreciate you guys joining us, and we'll catch you on Monday for our review. We'll catch you.
And guys, just to jump in real quick, if you did miss last night's show and also Monday's show, links are in the description below for this video. Last night's SuperCoach and our week 1 review, all around in NFL fantasy is also linked below. Make sure to tune out if you did miss.
Beautiful. We'll see you soon. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.